drink. Join the chat. Let's start the show.
Good afternoon, wherever you are tuned in and listening or watching from. You are in for another great episode of the Happy Hour Show with Lindsey Vertner. I am your host. You got it, Lindsey Vertner. I'm a peak potential strategist and transformational speaker. I teach ambitious, busy female entrepreneurs how to master their mindset and increase their self-care, self-worth, and self-discipline. And I'm super excited for you to be joining me tonight as I have another special guest. Now, if you've been minding the schedule, you may have saw one name, but unfortunately, she had some medical emergencies that she had to tend to. And so we want to keep our previous guests in our prayers. But I've got an awesome guest for tonight to make up for it. So you will be absolutely pleased. If you're tuning in right now, make sure that you comment, love, share this video out, because you never know who's going to need the juicy gems that I know will be dropped, okay? And if you're tuning in live, then comment all the way live. And if you're catching the replay later on, then comment replay all day. We love you just the same. Listen. This is a conversation between myself, our special guest, and you. So make sure that you comment, and engage in the conversation. And I hope that you're ready to grab a drink and join the chat as I introduce tonight's special guest on the Happy Hour Show. All right, are you ready? So as the single mother of a remarkable 7-year-old boy with special abilities and a survivor of domestic abuse, Tiffany learned to emulate her son's autism, which is an acronym for always under total influence of seizing moments of calm, silence, and pure excitement. As a wellness strategist and empowerment speaker, she uses mindset management, which is my jam, so you know it's going to be a good conversation, and movement through music to empower other single supermoms and sheroes to redefine their identities. She's a wellness strategist, an alignment coach, the founder of I Am Tiffany Shoemaker, and an Amazon #1 best-selling author. Please welcome tonight's very special guest, Miss Tiffany Shoemaker.
Hey, Tiffany. How's everybody doing out there?
Yes. Welcome to the show. Super excited to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Listen, I know that I just gave a brief summary of your bio and a little bit of who you are, but I want you to peel back the curtains and really tell us, who is Tiffany? Where do you come from? Give us the good tea.
Hey, everybody. My name is Tiffany Shoemaker. I was born and raised in Gary, Indiana. I moved to Indianapolis by way of Atlanta, went to school at Spelman College and studied theater. That is my background. Love the stage, missed the stage, haven't been on stage in a while, but I'm going back to the stage soon. I have a 7-year-old son. His name is Quincy, and he is my heart. He is my joy, and he is that pain in my butt. Absolutely love him. He is on the spectrum, but he teaches me everything that I know about living life and living life to the fullest. So right now I am enjoying some time preparing to move away from my profession. I'm a fitness instructor. I take advantage of working out, but I'm learning how to broaden my horizons. I love dance and I teach Zumba, but now I'm venturing into the running and the cardio and the resistance training and all of those wonderful things because they're beneficial. So I'm all about total body alignment and mental alignment. So yeah, that's just the beginning.
Nice. So I did not know that you went to Spelman. I did not know that you studied theater.
Yes, I did. I was originally a bio major, pre-vet. But it requires you to actually enjoy science or to be able to at least pass science classes, and that didn't work out. And I always wanted to study theater as a high school student and wanted to go to a performing arts high school, and my father would not have it. So when I went off to school, I finally decided that I was going to pursue something that I loved, and theater was it. It was the bomb diggity.
So there's something that you just said, and I know most people are not going to catch this. So I want to point it out and connect the dots. You said your father would not approve for you to go to a performing arts school. And so then you made the decision to study theater once you went off to college.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Here's the thing. So many people out there, unfortunately, continue to live their lives to the other people's expectations of who that other person thinks that they should be. Yeah. So tell us what that was like, because that can be a scary thing, especially when it's coming from the parents, because oftentimes we feel obligated to be the person that our parents want us to be. Right. And ultimately we have to live our own lives. So tell us about that. What was that journey like between, making your dad proud, but then ultimately doing what makes you happy?
Honestly, I started as a bio major because of my mother. Mm-hmm. Even though my father didn't let me go to a performing arts school, it was my mother. And I tell her all the time about this conversation that we had. And she was the reason why I chose biology when I filled out my college applications. I knew that there was the opportunity to study theater at Spelman. And I wanted to take advantage. And it was a day that she was washing dishes, or she was in the kitchen, she was at the counter. And I said, "Mama, what do you think about me being a theater major?" And she turned around and she looked at me. She said, "If that's what you want to do with the rest of your life." So I said, "Okay, biology major, check." And I went off to school. And to be perfectly honest with you, I struggled. I struggled because not only was I not doing something or studying something that I actually enjoyed and really felt like I could apply myself to, I did my best. But because it wasn't in my interest, it didn't work for me. And finally, I decided, you know what, I'm an adult now. And I've got to do what is going to make me happy. And it may not be something that my parents are pleased with, but you know what, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to take a class. Let me just experience it and see what it's like, see if it's something that I really want to do. And I fell in love. End of my first semester, I changed my major, and I didn't tell my parents until I went home that summer to let them know. And to be perfectly honest with you, they are my biggest supporters. They were my biggest supporters, especially at that time. They were traveling to Atlanta for a weekend to catch my shows. And, just really, really, they embraced the fact that I was doing what I loved. I was excelling at it. So it meant that I was going to apply myself so that I could succeed, but I had to convince them that it was worthwhile for me. So it was definitely a challenge.
Nice. That is definitely, unfortunately, a lot of people miss that part of the journey, realizing that this isn't making me happy. So what can I do different? I can't live up to the expectations of other people. I have to do what makes me happy.
Yeah, absolutely.
And because they love you, they eventually came around.
Either they will embrace it or they won't. But whose life is it that is going to be impacted negatively if you don't do what you love? And that was the question that I constantly had to ask myself. Do I know that I'm going to New York after Spelman, or am I going to LA after Spelman? I have no idea. Am I going to a university or a college to teach? But I knew in that moment that was what was fulfilling for me. And that's what I needed to do.
Nice. If you're just tuning in, you are watching the Happy Hour Show with myself, Lindsey Vertner, and my beautiful guest, Miss Tiffany Shoemaker. She is a wellness strategist and alignment coach and #1 Amazon bestselling author. And make sure you grab your drink and join the chat. If you have any questions, post them down below. Tiffany will get a chance to answer those later on. And make sure you just keep your comments coming and engage in the conversations, because it's me, her, and you, wherever you are watching or listening from. So let's continue.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
how did you start to identify your purpose? So was acting and doing things in theater your purpose, or was there a shift at some point?
There was a shift. I always say if you take enough left turns, eventually you'll go right. And I felt like I took a lot of left turns. I knew that I loved the theater and I loved the stage. I loved performance. But when I moved back home, I came to Indy. My mother had moved here, and I needed a job. And I had to audition in order to find theater work. So I needed something that was going to help to balance me. So I was auditioning and I was looking for something that was a little more stable. Didn't want to wait tables, but retail is the next best thing when you're a starving artist. So I went into retail supervision, and that landed a job from one business to the next. Kids R Us closed, and then I ended up with CVS. And while I was progressing with CVS, I was also progressing with the theater. But what I found was the theater wasn't paying me enough money. So I had to make a choice. Am I going to pursue what I love and struggle? Or am I going to go with what is more stable and make money and have the home and everything that, I want to establish myself so that I have a good foundation? So I put the theater on the back burner, and I pursued my career in retail management. And I was really great at it. It was wonderful. But I found that I had a love for teaching and training my employees, particularly making sure that they were developed so that they could succeed outside of my supervision of them, like making them independent so that they didn't need me. That just absolutely gave me so much joy. And I didn't realize it because there were so many other things that we were doing in the business. You're merchandising, and you got to provide customer service, and you're ordering and the paperwork, and there are all these different things that are happening behind the scenes that people don't realize go into running a business. But it was the people. The people engagement was the most important for me. And so even when I transitioned from CVS to UPS, I started out as a package handler, and as soon as I went into supervision, I got right back into that. I get to train, I get to teach, I get to develop, and I get to help people to be independent and independently successful in what they're doing. That was key. It was so important to me. And I found that in every position that I've had, that's what I'm drawn to. And it didn't click until a long time later. I'll just put it that way. It's been a good 15, close to 20 years. It didn't click that was the common theme for every position and every role that I've had was people development. That was my focus. It was helping people to help themselves. And it wasn't until I got into HR that I realized I wasn't making the difference that I wanted to, that I understood my purpose is to coach others. It is to teach others. It is to develop others or help them to develop. And it's a real roundabout way of getting there, left turn, left turn, left turn. And here I am right where I'm supposed to be. So
better late than never. But there's a couple things that you mentioned that I definitely want to make sure I point out for the viewers and the listeners is that, you said it was hard to recognize what you were doing because there was so many other things to focus on in making sure the business was maintained. And what I heard was there was so much other business clutter that you missed this crucial piece of it. And what I'm relaying this to is that oftentimes in our lives, Our purpose is right there all along, but we're dealing with so much other clutter emotionally and mentally and physically and all kinds of things that we don't recognize when those seeds are being dropped. Some of us never recognize it, unfortunately, and then some of us take 15 or 20 years to recognize it. But you're a wellness coach, so I'm sure that you can understand like how the clutter in our lives affects us.
Absolutely.
So talk a little bit about that.
You can look at it two different ways. You can look at it as the clutter and as a distraction that it's keeping you from seeing the bigger picture, or you can look at it as the steps that develop you so that you are ready for seeing whatever it is that is your purpose. And I feel like I needed to be prepared for this moment. I feel like the engagement that I got with other people, yes, the work was a distraction, but I developed skills along the way that I wouldn't have had I not had those jobs, had I not had to do those meticulous things, had I not understood how meticulous I am when it comes to merchandising. Or fronting and facing is something that we do. We pull all the products to the front of the shelves so that they make these beautiful pictures. I didn't realize that I had a little bit of OCD when it came to things like that. But it helped me to understand that I visualize pictures and I see things in an organized way, and it helps me to understand what's needed. So I wouldn't have known that had I not had a retail background. I wouldn't have known that had I not gotten that experience. So you can allow it to be clutter where it's a distraction and you never really get focused, or you can take all of those little pieces and really, really put them together so that you understand how you work and how you operate. It's about getting to know you. So I don't really see it as clutter. Just did take a bit of a long time to get there. That's all.
We are going to take a pause right there, because if you are just tuning in, you are watching the Happy Hour Show with Lindsey Vertner and my special guest, Miss Tiffany Shoemaker. She is a wellness strategist and alignment coach. Make sure that you grab a drink and join the chat, because this is a conversation between all of us, okay? And post your questions for Miss Tiffany down below, and she'll have an opportunity to answer those later on in the show. Now, I actually think that this would be a great time to, I don't know, maybe find out
what's in your cup.
Yes! This is the part of the show where we like to play a little game where we find out exactly what's in your cup. That was my fadeaway. Yes. So if you're tuned in, make sure you post in the comments what you're sipping on at home. And if unfortunately you don't have a drink, then post what you wish you were sipping on, okay? And then hopefully you can go make it after the show is over. But meanwhile, our guest, Miss Tiffany, is going to share what she's drinking, and then she's going to give us a little cup cam. So what's in your cup, Miss Shoemaker?
I'm having a refreshing mug of H2O. It's some water, y'all. It is water, because I got to get my gallon in. So this is just contributing to that. We have a sip. But you ready for my cup cam?
Yes.
Can you see?
Over just a little bit. Other way. Up and then up. Oh, yeah, right there. Love your selfie. Yes. And it just looks so fancy and elegant. Maybe it's the black and gold, but yes. Oh, Vogue. Yeah. Well, listen. Listeners and viewers at home, it's okay if there's a party in your cup, because it's #no judgment zone on the Happy Hour Show. And usually I too would have a party in my cup. But on today, I am also on the health train. And this wasn't even planned with Miss Tiffany, because I am sipping on. Okay. This is a flavored water. It's fruit infused water. So this flavor was watermelon. My son picked out my flavor for me today. And see, I'm at the beginning of my 6 week healthy eating plan. And so I'm only gonna be sipping on some water for the next 6 weeks. Unless it's a cheat day. If it's a cheat day. But none of my cheat days are on happy hour show days. So that is what I am sipping on in my cup. So make sure you post in the comments what you are sipping on as well. And meanwhile, let's get back to this juicy discussion. So I know you are a wellness strategist, and you mentioned about being the calm and the stillness and things like that. But I know that you mentioned domestic violence, domestic abuse in your biography. So tell us a little bit about that, because that can be very opposite of calm and silence and things like that. So what happened?
My personal experience was psychological abuse. So it was something that was completely unexpected. It wasn't something, you walk in the door and you have somebody that's raising their hand to you and you know what's coming. It was, imagine someone picking your mind apart and putting in pieces of things that would make you question yourself, make you question your environment, your surroundings. And it was manipulative enough that it altered my personality. And it's an unfortunate and unpredictable experience. If you've never had anyone tell you about gaslighting, someone making you feel that you are insane in what you're thinking, you've got this routine and someone comes in and they completely disrupt your everyday being. That was my experience. And, I don't really even know how it began. Actually, I do. And I want to say this before I even get into the story. I, in the past, have been an enabler. So I've been willing to accept other people's opinions, other people's thoughts, other people's perceptions, and other people's circumstances. And I see the best. I'm an optimist. I want to see the best in you. I see the good in you. I want to, I want the most for you. But in a relationship, it requires that both parties come to the table whole.
Yes.
And honest and with integrity. And because I was dealing with someone who was not integritous, somebody who was not honest, someone who was not trustworthy, and I wanted to see the best, I put on my blinders. And I was trying my best to accept the best of him, those best parts that I could get. But all the while, I was being destroyed in the process. You're pouring goodness into someone else and they're not giving you anything in return except negativity, except chaos. It is completely destructive. Yeah. So I was self-sabotaging simply by accepting what I was getting in this relationship. And that is the heart of psychological abuse. I'm at a place now where I can recognize my role. It is not always what someone does to you. It is a lot of times what we allow to be done to us.
Yeah.
So, I have to take that. I have to take that responsibility and have to acknowledge that I was accountable, in this relationship. Yes, there were lies. Yes, there were schemes. And okay, let me tell y'all this. Tell you to get the book, but the book ain't gonna give you all the book. I was
to come to your stage play down the line.
I was with a man who was living a double life. He
Mm.
was not who he said he was. And he was able to not only fool me and my family, we were in a relationship where I had my own and he had his own, supposedly. And we would encounter people in business, and the people in business bought into the story that he sold them. And it was so profound that it made it extremely difficult not to believe that what you were hearing was the truth. If everybody is fooled, then it can be me, right?
Right.
It can't be me that isn't seeing the reality, but I was the only one that stayed in that situation where the light bulb didn't go off in time, where other people were going away. I was still stuck in this space. And the effects of psychological abuse are just as detrimental, if not more detrimental, than physical abuse, because you can't see the scars.
Yes.
You can't see the hurt. And it took me to a completely different place.
Mm-hmm. And I think
Completely different place.
very key to point out, because there are many, many people out there, unfortunately, right now that are in abusive relationships and they don't even realize it because it is emotional and psychological. And so kudos to you for, one, being able to recognize how you allow that into your space, and then two, being able to free yourself from that environment. And I know it wasn't easy. Over here, Miss Cynthia says, yes, yes. If you are just tuning in, you're watching the Happy Hour Show with my special guest, Miss Tiffany Shoemaker. Make sure you comment, love, share this video out, and engage with us in the comments. Post your questions below. But absolutely, absolutely, mental abuse is just as significant as the physical abuse. And like you said, oftentimes even worse, because those don't go away. Like a bruise goes away. A broken arm eventually heals. And unfortunately, it can get much, much more extreme than that. But the emotional abuse that comes day in and day out, that sticks with you. And that's why, it's so hard for women to leave, or why you can't understand, well, she left and then she went right back to him. And it's because there's so much emotional and mental psychological things going on at play that takes her right back or keeps her in that space. So what would you say to that person that may be listening, that is maybe unsure if they're in that type of situation? Like, is my significant other emotionally abusive or no? Like, what are some of the signs that might be easily ignorable?
The hints of doubt. And I say hints because they only hit you like somebody tapping, and you feel it, but you don't pay attention to it. You notice it, but you ignore it. When you realize, or when you're in the relationship and you're dealing with your partner and you start to question yourself, answer yourself. That is the key. If you are questioning your identity, your integrity, your environment, I had things that were moved around in my home, and then I was told that they were always there.
Oh,
that's how deep it can get, where that reality should be a certain way and it's not making sense. Start asking yourself the questions, not your partner. It is yourself. If you have doubt, trust it. If you have uncertainty, investigate it.
Yes.
It is not enough to have a conversation with your partner when it is you who is out of alignment, when it is you who is not clear with your reality. So if you don't know, and you have, or better yet, if you even have to ask, is my partner, am I in this situation? You need to take a step back. And you need to have a conversation with you. Okay, who am I? Who was I before I got into this relationship? And who am I right now? And is this the person that I want to be? Is the relationship the cause of it? or am I choosing to be this way?
Mm-hmm.
But you gotta have that dialogue with yourself. Anytime you have doubt and uncertainty, you gotta ask the questions, and you're not asking anyone but yourself.
Absolutely. I love that. And I put it right there on the screen for the folks in the balcony. If you have doubt, trust it. If you have uncertainty, investigate it. A la Miss Tiffany Shoemaker, our special guest on tonight. And it's so important that you mentioned that about you have to ask yourself those questions, because if you ask the instigator, of course, he gonna make it seem like it's all your problem. And if
Exactly.
as somebody on the outside, they might not understand the full dynamics of what's going on. They might
Mhm.
only be privy to just a piece here and a piece there, but not the whole playing field. And so I love that you mentioned that. Ask yourself those questions and ask yourself, is this who I want to be because I'm choosing to be that person? Or does this person make me into this person?
Mhm.
I love that you pointed that out.
If I can give you all anything else, if you have a circle, if you do have a circle of trust, girlfriends, family members, or whomever, and they come to you and they tell you that you've changed, ask yourself, is that change for the positive or for the negative? Not
Mm.
asking them, but take a step back and look in the mirror and say, okay, have I really changed? What is different about me? Because a lot of times people on the outside do recognize that something is wrong. They can't put their finger on it, they can't place it, but they notice that something is different about you. My mother told me once, she said that she asked me a question and I went to him before I could give her an answer.
Mm.
That ain't me. I ain't asking nobody permission to do nothing. But that was where I was in that relationship, and I didn't see it. I didn't notice it. It was over my head. So if you do have people who love you, and not everybody who has an opinion is right, but if they come to you in a loving manner and they say that you have changed, ask the question, have I? And is it for the better or for the worse?
Absolutely, absolutely. If you're just tuning in, you're watching the Happy Hour Show with Lindsey Vertner, myself, and my phenomenal guest, Miss Tiffany Shoemaker. She is a wellness strategist and alignment coach. And make sure you comment, love, share this video out, engage with us in the comments, because this is between all of us, okay? You, her, and me. We're all in this together. So I want to find out, what was that turning point where you said, you know what, I can't be in this anymore, and you decided to make a change for your life?
That little boy who just got up out of the bed a few minutes ago and he's supposed to be asleep because he got to go to school tomorrow. I got pregnant,
Mm,
and at that time that I was pregnant, I was also having suicidal ideation.
mm,
And without, actually, I don't care if I tell you this, if it's in the book, still read the book because it is profound and there are a lot more stories than my own. But I realized that I could not abort my child. It didn't sit well with me. But at the same time, I didn't want to live. So I chose to bring my child to full term and deliver. And I wanted to disappear. And what I learned after he was born was that he was dependent upon me, not just dependent upon me for nourishment. I could have put him on formula, given him a bottle instead of breastfeeding, but I chose to breastfeed. He was dependent on me for protection. He had no abilities of his own except breathing, pretty much. So he needed the assistance of another person in order to just exist. And I couldn't see leaving him in the hands of his father at that time because I knew what the hands of his father had done to me.
mm,
So I stuck around a little bit longer, and I stuck in the relationship a little bit longer too. trying to make that family dynamic work. I didn't want my son to grow up without a father, especially if his father was present. But at the same time, I was in a toxic environment. So you got this pull, this constant pull back and forth, this tug of war. And finally, I made the decision to allow his father to be a father without having to be a significant other. It was extremely important for me and my sanity, for me and my healing, for me and my growth to separate myself from him. And that was the thing. Being a mother meant that I had to set the example. I didn't know that Quincy was on the autism spectrum at the time, but just as a child, they're looking at everything that you do. They're emulating everything that you do. They're engaged with you 24/7. They can absorb your emotion. And if I'm not healthy, then it means that that's what I'm giving him. I'm not just feeding him by mouth. I'm actually feeding him every bit of energy that I have. And if it means that I'm unhealthy, it's making him unhealthy. Our environment is toxic, so it means that his environment is toxic. And it got to the point to where I said, okay, enough is too much. We need to completely separate. I need to be a mother. You need to be a father. We can do this as co-parents if we have to, but I can't do you anymore. Yeah. I got to do me. And right now, me is being a mother and figuring out a way how to make the best life for my child. That was my turning point. It was all about my baby. That's it.
Absolutely.
I was lucky.
I'm so glad that you made that, because oftentimes, many people want to try and make the relationship work that much more harder because there is a child or children involved. So now they're like, oh, well, now kids are involved, so they've got to get better. It's got to get better. And unfortunately, you only create a more toxic environment, because now your children is picking up on the environment and on the behaviors, and they're growing up with that as their example of what a relationship should look like.
And that's part of the reason it took me 2 years. It took me 2 years to finally completely separate myself from him, because I was so adamant about making a way for him to be involved in his son's life without me being that mother that says, you know what, you can't see him. No, you can't be around him. No, I don't want. It wasn't about what I wanted. It was about him having the opportunity to have both of his parents. And in the beginning, I felt like to have both of his parents, we still needed to be together. And then it was, we still needed to be in the same home. And then it was, we still needed to be in the same space. And then it was, we still needed to be connected in some way, shape, or form. And then it was, you know what, let's go through the courts and let them decide what the arrangement will be so that we don't have to do this anymore.
Yes. Now, I love that you were putting yourself first so that you could be better for your son. I think that's another nugget that might have went over some heads out there. You made the choice to, I have to put myself first so that I can effectively and healthily take care of my son. So what did that look like for you?
It started out with new work. I was fired from my job. While I was in that relationship, a month before Quincy was born, I was fired from my job. Mm-hmm. And after Quincy was born, I expected his father to step up and to step in. I wasn't bringing in an income anymore, so it meant he was either going to poop or get off the pot. He kept pooping. So I had to go back to work, and I didn't trust myself. And when I went in as a package handler, it was entry level. I had management experience, had a lot under my belt, had a lot of skills, a lot of tools, a lot of things that I could have used to have gotten a better job, but I didn't trust myself in a leadership role. So I had to build myself back up. And it started with just finding work that would allow me to reestablish that level of trust with me that was necessary to grow and to advance. And once I had the job in place, and that meant that I had income coming in, I could provide for my son in some capacity, then I started embracing the things that made me happy. I was in a multi-level marketing business, and that was fun. It was fine. It was dandy, but there was an organization within the organization of people that they exuded joy. They exuded happiness. And I'm going, I need whatever it is that they've been eating or drinking or whatever it is that they own. I need some of that in my life. And I started surrounding myself with people who had the energy that I was seeking for me. And while I was in that environment, I also ended up getting personal development in the process. And so I started to learn what it meant to take care of me, and what it meant to see me, and what it meant to put myself first, really, genuinely. And then I got the diagnosis for Quincy's autism. And I'm going, you know what? I noticed that he mimics. I noticed that he says things over and over and over again. Or if he has a behavior that he does it over and over and over again. And a lot of times he's doing what I do. Mm-hmm. So how am I showing up? You know, how am I presenting myself to him? How am I at home? I was constantly angry, constantly frustrated, constantly tense. I have a lot of pet peeves, and they were just, they were like through the roof. And so I had all of this negativity that I was carrying with me, and it meant that that's what he was getting. So I had to shift my mindset. I had to find the things that gave me joy so that I could then start sharing those things with him. The happier I was, the happier our environment was, the more healthy the environment was for him. And that's it. It became a snowball. What is it that I like? What is it that I enjoy? How can I incorporate it into my life just a little bit more? Wait a minute. I used to love dance. I used to love teaching Zumba. One of my girlfriends called me. She opened up a studio. She needed an instructor. Okay, I'll teach. And that one class turned into 2 classes, and it turned into 4 classes. I was teaching 6 days a week with Quincy in a jumper in the studio with me, just so I had that release that Zumba gave me. And I carried that. You know, I started taking him on those journeys with me so that he could see what made me happy, and he could be a part of what made me happy. And I continue to do that. How can I incorporate something that I love, or something that I enjoy, or something that gives me joy into my everyday life? You know, it's important.
It truly is. Over here in the comments, Suzanne says, surround yourself with people who share your values. Absolutely, because Tiffany explained already what happens whenever they don't share your values. And if you missed it, make sure you go back and watch the replays, because it was good. And you lose yourself. You lose yourself, as she mentioned. But fortunately for us, she found herself, and she's doing phenomenal things. So share that journey, because you mentioned that he was autistic. So he was mimicking things and very much modeling the behavior that you put out there. And so I know that sometimes you have parents that use their autistic children as their excuse for not achieving their own goals. And there's definitely, you know, that added maybe stress, or that added piece of caring for someone with autism, or any type of maybe a physical disability, or even an elderly parent, or anything like that. But you seem to be following your goals. And there are some other people out there that are achieving their goals and dreams, but they have autistic children. So what would be your advice for those people that maybe have a child on the autistic spectrum, so that they don't give up on their dreams and their goals?
I want to be careful when I answer this, because there are so many different levels on the spectrum. I'm fortunate that Quincy is high functioning. He does still have some fine motor skill issues, and comprehension and communication is where he lacks. Um, so I don't want to minimize the people that have children that require physical restraint and the outbursts can be extreme, or that their children are completely nonverbal. There are so many different experiences with children on the spectrum. But if there is one thing that I can offer to every single parent, it is that our children need us to be whole.
Mm-hmm.
They need us to be whole. We have to be filled in order to pour into them. You got to have something to give. And if you are not taking care of yourself, then you're lessening what it is that they get from you, and they end up suffering for it. And so do you. So take time out for yourself. People always say, I don't have time. We're constantly busy. He's up at dark 30 in the morning. It doesn't matter. 5 minutes to breathe. And a lot of times that's what we need as parents of children with special abilities. We just need a moment to breathe. When we come home from school every day, he comes into the house, I pull the car in and I sit. And it's only 2.5 minutes that I sit, but I sit, I compose myself, and then I move forward into our routine so that we're able to do our homework or make our dinner or whatever it is that we have to do. And it doesn't mean that it's not necessarily stressful, but take the time, even if it's only 30 seconds, breathe. You gotta breathe, because if you don't breathe, they will suffocate you.
Over here in the comments, Miss Suzanne says, if we are full, they get more. No guilt necessary. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I love that you mentioned that you'll sit in the car for 2 minutes and just breathe, because oftentimes when we think of self-care, we think of getting a manicure, getting a massage, going shopping, and all these extravagant things. And yes, those can be a layer of self-care, but self-care is so much more than that. And it doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to take a lot of time. Like just taking 5 minutes to yourself to breathe.
Yes.
Is a form of self-care.
Mm-hmm. Get up in the morning before everybody else does and pray or meditate or write or draw or whatever it is that you can do within a short amount of time to just release, to woosah, and then engage your day, engage your children, go about your business, do your work. It's necessary for you, and it benefits everyone around you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I always say, self-care is giving the world the best of you instead of what's left of you. And it's so important that we prioritize self-care, because self-care is not selfish. Now, I know that with all of your experiences that you've been through in your life, it kind of birthed into your purpose. So tell us a little bit about what is I Am with Tiffany Shoemaker and your business Autism, which is an acronym.
The I Am Transformational Program particularly focuses on women who have suffered trauma. It doesn't have to be domestic violence, it doesn't have to be domestic abuse, but women who have suffered trauma and they are still suffering.
Ooh.
The trauma is over, it is in the past, it is beyond you. But you are still suffering. You are still questioning your identity. You are still questioning what fits you and what's right for you. And you're accepting other people's opinions into your life. And you're trying to fit a mold that just never seems to be big enough to hold you. It is that focus that we go from suffering to exceptionalism. We are all exceptional. We are not the rule. We are not intended to be the same. Lindsey and I may do similar things, but we are not the same person. As a matter of fact, the fact that we are not the same person allows you variety, that you get something different when you encounter Lindsey than what you get from me. And you get something different from me than you get from the next person. So if we realize that we are not intended to be exactly like the next person, then we're able to shift our perspective. A lot of times we hear things and we take it as golden. Like Lindsey, I'm going to play with you for a minute. Actually, I'm not going to. It's just this is something that I teach. Self-care is not selfish, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is something that you teach. Something that I teach is that you should always be selfish. Always. Selfishness is healthy. And you understand where I'm going with this, but this is about perception. Perception is reality. So if you feel that selfishness takes you away from self-care, then how do you take care of yourself? Self-care, self-worth, self-respect. Self is at the heart of all of it. So you must require yourself to be self-ish. Change the verbiage. It is not about being inconsiderate of someone else. And that's what selfishness and the way that we describe it as being unhealthy, that's what it truly is. We're inconsiderate of everyone else around us and we're only thinking about our own benefit. That's not selfishness. Selfishness requires that you take care of you first. You can't pour from an empty cup. So if you don't take care of yourself, what do you have to give to anyone else? So if you realize that we've been taught certain things, I've been taught not to be selfish. So therefore, it's really hard for me to take time out for me. It's really hard for me to do things. I feel guilty. And that's okay. It's okay to feel guilty because that's what you've been taught. But shift your mindset, shift the perception. If our feelings are simply the reaction of what we perceive, then change what you perceive so that the feeling is different.
Were y'all catching all those gems? Because if not, then you need to go back and listen or watch the replay, okay? Over here, the comments were getting good. Mr. Dwayne, I dealt with this with my wife when she first came home after a stroke. You need that self-time. Absolutely. And Miss Shirley says, that's what makes us beautiful. And Miss Cynthia just says, wow. Absolutely. I told y'all it was going to be a good show like it always is, but even more so because now we're getting the amazingness that is Miss Tiffany Shoemaker. Hey, yes, absolutely. I think that this would be a great time for a little game that I like to play. Okay, how about
30-second hot shot. Answer the question in 30 seconds or less, or take your shot.
Are you up for the challenge? Yes. Listen,
get my water ready.
Post your comments, or not your comments, post your questions in the comments below, and she might answer them right now. So how we play 30-second hot shot is I'm going to pull up my handy dandy timer on the right now, and I'm going to set it for 30 seconds. I'm going to read the question, and you have 30 seconds to answer it, okay? And
I'm worried.
If you miss it, you got to take a shot. It'll be a water. It'll be a water shot, but everybody at home will have to take a shot of whatever they're drinking as well. So, yes, if y'all are drinking healthy things, then no problem. But if y'all got a little party in your cup, you better
get a little tipsy.
30 seconds. So the first question is, how does one start to become more self-aware? Ooh, go.
Identify your needs. You need to figure out what it is that you need. What is the foundation of what you need, the heart of what you need? At the very minimum, every single day, I need this.
Oh, she had plenty of time left. 13 seconds to spare. Yes. Straight to the point.
Me.
So let's start again. Let me move that. Cancel. All right. The second question is, what's your best tips for self-care? Go.
Go all out. Go all out. And I'm not talking about money. I'm talking about experience. Go all out. If you know that there is something that just does it for you, do it. Just do it. Just throw caution to the wind and do it. My thing is puzzles. Do I really have time to throw some puzzle pieces on the table and work a puzzle? I'll make the time to do it because that's what I want. That's what gives me pleasure.
And take a shot. And listen, over here in the comments, Miss Cherie says grabs shot. Well, go ahead and take it because she missed the buzzer. I'll take it out of my hit water.
I'm wordy.
Hey, but that you got 2 out of 3 so far. So, oh wait, was that the second one? That was the second one, huh? So 50-50. Here comes the third one right now. Okay, so the last question is, unless y'all have any more, put them in the comments now before you miss your shot. The last question says, and I think you kind of already answered this already, but maybe you have another tip that you can share. What is a tip for practicing self-care when you have a child on the autism spectrum? Go.
Take the time. Just take the time. Make the time. Not just take the time. Make the time. Even if it's in small spurts. So yes.
Absolutely. There you go. So now you were 2 for 3. We just made it official with 19 seconds left to spare.
And that's only 66%. I'm sorry, I would be failing and I don't like that.
If you round up, then it's 70%, you know. Unless you're rounding by the 100. So 66 would round up to 100%. Shift the perspective.
I like that. What do you think?
That wouldn't work in school, but we can use it on some other stuff. So my very last question that I have for you, and this one you can take longer than 30 seconds. I always talk about living a first-class life. And what that means is that you shed away the mask of fear. You shed away those masks of doubt. You shed away the mask of living up to other people's expectations of who they think that you should be. And instead, you are intentional about the quality of life you're living. You are intentional about creating happiness in every moment that you can. And you show up boldly and unapologetically as you, flaws and all. So that is what living a first-class life is all about. So I have to ask all of my guests, how do you intentionally create happiness in your life?
Integrity and consistency. I honor the integrity of who I am. Plain and simple. And then I align everything else around me and create consistency in everything that I do, every choice that I make, so that there is never a question of whether or not I have happiness and am happy.
I love it. I love it. And y'all heard that pause in there. That's how you know the answer was gonna be juicy. Thank you for sharing. Yes,
my pleasure. Thank you.
If you're just tuning in, you missed it. Go back and watch or listen to the replay of this episode of the Happy Hour Show with Lindsey Vertner. That's me. And my very special guest, Miss Tiffany Shoemaker. She is a wellness strategist and alignment coach. You see her information right there on the screen. You can find her at www.tiffanyshoemaker.com. And that's shoe like the shoe on your feet, not SHU. TiffanyShoemaker.com. Follow her on Instagram at @IM_Tiffany Shoemaker. Take a screenshot of the screen if you are watching on your phone. And also make sure you get your signed copy of her book at firstclasslifebook.com/FCL Tiffany. Tell us the title of your book and what they can expect whenever they get their signed copy.
Well, you have the First Class Life anthology. It is, what is it, 10?
Yeah.
I'll be lying about stuff when you ask me about titles. It is the First Class Life anthology, and it is 10 amazing women who have shared their stories and how they have overcome various things so that they are able to live their first class life. So see, there you have it, 10 empowering lessons to help you create a life full of purpose, fulfillment, and happiness. I'm so ashamed. I'm so ashamed. So ashamed.
There is Amazon #1 best-selling author and working on another book. So make sure you reach out to her so you can stay updated whenever that new book is coming out. Tell us the title of your new book.
It is Gratitude with a Side of Grace, My Huge Hunk of Humble Pie.
Absolutely love it. You see her picture right there on the screen with that Amazon badge. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. And again, here is her information, TiffanyShoemaker.com. Make sure you follow her. Make sure you get your signed copy of her book at firstclasslifebook.com/FCL Tiffany. I just want to thank our special guest, Miss Tiffany Shoemaker, once again for joining us on the Happy Hour Show. And make sure that you stay updated on all things Happy Hour by going to bit.ly/happy updates so you can stay updated on future episodes. And sometimes my guests give happy hour specials, but only if you're on the VIP list. So make sure you sign up. You see it scrolling across your screen right there. bit.ly/happy updates. I want to make sure that you are well taken care of with my phenomenal guests. And make sure you tune in this Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern, as I will be having a special celebrity comedian on the Happy Hour Show. So make sure that you are tuned in and you stay updated. Again, bit.ly/happy updates. And with that, I pray that you have a very blessed and abundant week. See y'all later.
Lindsey. Bye, y'all.